On this episode of Game Shack, I attempt to bigify the 17-inch stock screen on an Arcade1up cabinet to this gargantuan 20-inch Dell. Just look at it. It's insane. Coming up next. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me again in the Game Shack. I'm your host, JDV for Evil Genius Entertainment. Thanks to all our new subscribers and everybody who's been checking out the channel of late. Okay, let's jump right into it. This episode is going to be about how you replace your stock screen, why you'd want to replace your stock screen, how easy it to do it, and how expensive is it going to be. The monitors that we're going to be looking at today are 4x3. They are the more traditional square shape, kind of home office type monitor, you know, that was popular back in the day. They're a lot closer in aspect ratio to the old tube TV sets than they are to modern screens. So you might be asking yourself, well, why in the heck am I going to go backwards in time for these monitors? Well, the fact is that these 20-inch and 19-inch screens at 4.3 fit perfectly into the cabinet of these Arcade1up machines. So it's almost like they were designed to fit into these machines. So because they don't make 4.3 screens anymore, and if anybody knows of a new model that they make in 4.3, let me know down below. But as far as I know, if you want a 4.3 aspect ratio, a more square looking screen, you have to buy an older monitor. And the most popular monitors for this are these Dells, just because they were the top of the line monitors 15 years ago, and that's how old these are. They're like 15 and 16 years old at this point. This is the most popular model. This is the 2007 FP, and I'll talk a little bit more about how to tell them apart. And this is the model from the year before this model. This is just the 2007. The only real difference in these monitors, as far as our concern, is that this older one has slightly worse contrast. So this has, I think, 200 more contrast points than this has, which means that your blacks will be richer and deeper on this monitor as opposed to this. You can get this on Amazon for $50. This cost me $150. So there is actually a huge, I guess, run on this 2007 FP monitor, making them much more expensive than maybe you'd want them to be, and the prices have gone through the roof. It's pretty hard to tell the difference between these two machines. There are differences. The more expensive FP 2007 has a black border. The 2001 version has this gray border, but it's really from the stand. So if you see these things in a pawn store, the more kind of V stand is what you're looking for versus this sort of semicircular type stand here. So other than that, they're very, very similar. They have similar inputs. Not exact, but they're very, very close, obviously. And this has a silver background as opposed to black. So they kind of switch the molding up a little bit to differentiate. So anyway, that's but you want, I guess if you're looking at a pawn store and you have both models and they cost the same, go ahead and grab the one with the V feet. All right, so let's just get right on into it. See how hard this is. All right. The only screws I can see are these four here. So let's go ahead and take them out. Hell, what am I doing? Using a screwdriver when I have a drill. What's wrong with me? All right, so let's go ahead and take out these screws. There's two small screws that keep looks like 5 buttons onto this piece. I'm going to see if I can just take this whole big shell off first. Ooh, looks like maybe I can. Hey, all right, so that's not so bad. All right, and then we have, oh, there we go. All right, so I mean, we're pretty much right there. Okay, so that really was not bad. You want to be careful when you're popping this off that you don't scratch anything else. And I don't know if you can see it. Oh man, I don't want to break it. There are two small Phillips head screws keeping this in. So let me see if I can't go get a little tiny Phillips head screwdriver. I'll be right. Okay, I can't find a screwdriver, but I do have a giant knife, which I presume will be just as good. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I was able to get the shell off relatively easy. Actually, the hardest part was taking this, the four screws out of this and not breaking it. Okay, so the next step for me is I'm going to take this all out. Let's go ahead and take this out right now. You can see I spared no expense in doing this. So I'm going to unhook this, take it out, and then I'm going to take this monitor out and then compare the two sizes. Okay, coming up next. I think this is a good example of just the difference in the sizes of the two sizes of the stock screen here and the new screen there. So here I have placed the monitor on the old bezel, and what I'm going to just try to do is bring it down as close as I can here, because I have a feeling that's about where it's going to go. And then I'm going to try to make it even on both sides. I'll mark it out with a pencil, and then I will cut it. Okay, so I've already made a few cuts, which you can see here hopefully. Now I have a miter saw here, which actually makes this job quite easy, and I'll finish up the corners here using just a hand saw. I would advise using a table saw or a miter saw, something that has a little bit of control to it. Okay, so you can see I've put the screen back into the bezel that I cut, and using Gorilla tape, essentially really good duct tape, I duct taped it in on both sides, screwed it back in using the pre-existing screws and holes, and voila. I think it is probably almost as tall vertically as the vertical 17-inch screen, so it is very close. On vertical games it works quite well, and on just a horizontal games it works a lot. So it is a very nice thing to be able to put into your system that really doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, $150 tops, all the way down to $50 for a lesser version of it, and maybe cheaper than that. Should you do it? Well, you do have to have some wood craftsman's skills if you're going to try to do the bezel, because the bezel becomes very, very thin on the arms here, and if you mess up, you could very easily break the bezel itself. It's be very easy to cut a size too big. I cut it just a little tight, and this kind of nibbled away at it until I could shimmy it in there, and it shimmied in pretty easy and taped up pretty easy, actually easier than I thought it was going to be. But I have a nice miter saw, and I've used it a lot, so I can make fairly precise cuts on it. If you don't have a bandsaw, a miter saw, or if you're not very good with a jigsaw, roto saw, something like that, I would not attempt to do this using this bezel. You can buy bezels from other people if you do a search on YouTube, Facebook, Etsy. There are Tulsa Arcade sells a very nice bezel kit, but again, it costs $100, and there's almost a 2-month wait for it. So I didn't want to wait that long to put in the screen. It's about a 7 out of 10 in terms of difficulty. It's not the easiest. It's not the cheapest build. So you really kind of want it to do it. It's probably one of the more complicated builds outside of building your own control deck. I'd say maybe it's the second or third hardest build to do, at least that I'm aware of. Whereas these marquees, risers and sound, all those aren't that difficult. All right, well, thanks for watching this episode. Thanks for stopping in here. I appreciate all the new subscribers we've been getting, all the views we're getting for Game Shack. I really do appreciate that. Please like and subscribe. It does help more content keep coming. Love each other. Until next time, I'll see you in the Game Shack. Mwah! Look at the size of that screen. It must be a foot long.
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.